your still life. Now, I don't have ideal, there's nowhere in my house that doesn't have windows. So it's a little challenging, and I know it may be the same for you all. Also, this camera that I'm using that I can move around, it's really light sensitive. And so it makes everything look a little brighter than it actually is. But I put I don't know if you can see it, but I put a big canvas that I was about to start painting on up in my window to try to block the light. And then for setting up my still life, I just used a pillowcase. And so I taped a pillowcase up on the canvas in my little shelf in my studio. And then literally, you can see my still life objects are like empty cologne bottles, a water bottle. This is some turpentine that I used to clean my oil paint brushes with. And I don't even know what this bottle went to, but basically it's all garbage that I'm repurposing as a still life because I like to collect different bottles and things like that. So I have those set up. I played around for probably 10 minutes just organizing these objects where I have a sort of pyramid composition. I have a backdrop. And from where I'm sitting, I actually can see a cast shadow onto the fabric. So you may want to set up something similar. If you have like a cardboard box, you could also put put the objects in a cardboard box, kind of like a diorama, and put like a pillowcase or like a bed sheet in there, and then have a light source clamp to it. If you have like a little desk lamp or something you could use. But you do want to think about your still life, and I wouldn't choose things that are too complex at this point. I would probably keep it pretty simple, white objects or glass objects. Even though some of these things are transparent, you can still see the values. So if you can see the values, you can still draw it. Okay. So that's my sort of still life. And then I have over here this little floor lamp that you can turn on. It's got a bunch of lights, but I just turned on one and I have it pointed towards the still life over here. And with the lights turned out and everything, I actually see a good range of values. So that's what you're going to want for your still life. And then I'm going to do, instead of doing the drawings in the sketchbook, I'm going to do them on the easel here so you can see a little bit better. Let's see. Okay, so on my drawing board, I have my newsprint pad, and that's why on the sketchbook homework, I actually said that you can work in your newsprint pad or your sketchbook for these first two sketchbook drawings. And then for the contour slash cross contour and hatching one, you'll be able to use marker or pen. And I'm going to grab a really thick marker so that you're able to see the marks that I'm making on the webcam. I can find my markers. Okay, so I just grabbed a couple of different markers here, and looking at my still life, whenever you draw a still life, I usually will hold up my hands and I will look through my hands. I'll make like a little rectangle similar to the shape of my paper, and I'll kind of close one eye and use that as a viewfinder. Now, you all probably have a cell phone that can take pictures, so you can also kind of do that with your phone, and you can zoom in and you can find a good composition. Even your phones probably have the ability to take even black and white photos. But if you do that, I don't want you to work from the photo. I want you to work from the actual still life, but you could use the photo as a reference. So let me see if this works. So you can see this was a little black and white photo I just took of my still life, just maybe as a reference. But please don't work from just the photo, because you're going to miss a lot of the subtle range of values. So those are what we call a viewfinder. At the school, I actually have little old slides from slide projectors that I use those as a viewfinder to help me enlarge it to my paper. Another thing you want to consider, notice most of the objects I have are vertical, and even the water bottle and stuff is more tall than it is wide. So I would probably want a vertical composition like this. If your stuff is more spread out, if I were to throw this little bag and some other stuff in here that made it more horizontal, I would want to turn my paper horizontal. So you always will get to choose whether you do a vertical composition or a horizontal composition. Okay, so don't just get in the habit of, oh, I'm just going to do this way every time, because it really should depend on each drawing that you do. Okay. Now, another thing with the still life I mentioned is it's okay to have objects go off the page. So don't ever feel, like you have to start over if you go off the edge of the page. Some of my professors throughout school would even say it's better to have them go off the page in at least 3 places for better composition rules. So there are no true rules to composition, even though some people may tell you that there are. Okay. So what I'm going to do for the sketchbook assignment for the cross contour. Now I'm writing this on my paper, but if yours looks really good, you may not want to do that. You may put that on the back, but I would put your name, maybe put your name on it just for assignment purposes, or write this really small and neat at the bottom. But I just wanted you to be able to see what it was that I was doing. So just like in class, when we were drawing our hands and other objects last week, I'm going to start with an art object that I want to be a certain size. So the bottle, for me, I would like it to be, pretty big. And so I'm going to start with that one and then draw it, and then that will give me something to compare all the other objects to. You can use your pen or marker to, let's say you're drawing and I drew the bottle, I could then take my marker and hold it up and see where it lines up with this bottle, this glass bottle to this, so that would help me know where to put it. The same with this one, and then measure. So use your marker to cite angles and also to measure where things lining up. But that's what we call citing angles. And if you've ever seen an artist like closing one eye and like measuring and then measuring their drawing, that's what they're doing. Because wherever you're sitting, if you close your eye, like that's how big it should be. Okay. And if it lines up in the middle of the water bottle here, it would line up with the middle of the water bottle in your drawing. So we have all the tools that we need with our eyesight and our hand. Okay, so I'm going to just start with a simple contour drawing, and I'm going to try not to pick up my marker, but I would try to make a continuous mark just so that you move on, because otherwise you're going to be stuck here all day long, maybe even tomorrow too, if you're just trying to do like a slow, sketch thing the way that you used to do. So I'm just doing a contour line drawing of this water bottle, and I haven't even finished my coffee yet from this morning. I'm barely awake. I'm stressed out with the list of other things I have to do today. So this probably isn't going to be perfect, and I'm aware of that. That's why it's best to do these exercises to get warmed up before you jump into the nicer drawings that you do. So just be aware that you're always not going to be just ready to jump right into that larger, more drawing. So always practice first, I think, to get warmed up, just like we do in gym class. I'm not, I mean, if you look at me, you can tell I'm not working out all the time, but it's just, the reason is because you kind of have to put your focus on one thing sometimes when you have limited time. But, with it's very true. If you want to get in shape, it takes a lot of work. If you want to get better at drawing, it takes a lot of work as well. So this is that little dropper bottle. You can see I just transitioned into that object because it was in front of the bottle of water. And then the bottle of water continues behind here. And if you need to make up a line to get from one place to another, you can. And then here is that little cologne. And the camera is at a little bit different of an angle than I am looking at this, so it may look slightly different compared to what you're seeing in the camera. And like I said, if your hand gets tired, it's okay to pick up your marker. Now, notice how this went off the edge at the bottom, and I didn't even get to the bottom of these. So that's okay. It went off the edge. I still have plenty of stuff to draw. So again, don't worry about that if that happens. But still look at, see how things compare to each other, and try to do as much of it as you can as a continuous contour, because it will just help you get through the exercise a lot faster. Okay, and then this big bottle over here actually ran off the page. Okay, and then I think all that's left is this bottle over here. Okay, so you can see within just a couple of minutes, I have a pretty okay, I wouldn't say good, an okay line drawing of these various objects. And so now what I want to do with, I would probably set like a 15-20 minute timer. With what time you have left, I want you to try putting some hatching or cross hatching lines onto the drawing. And you could play around with color markers if you want to, or you could use like finer pens if you want, whatever that you need to do. But wherever you see maybe darker values, like on this water bottle on this side, I see darker shadows on these ridges here. So maybe I put in some hatching lines along here. This bottle here, I see some really dark values here, so maybe I'm just going to use the Sharpie again to put some cross contour lines here. I see some lines in here as well. So these will not only help suggest the volume, but they also will help suggest the value that we see. So on this side, I see some pretty significant shadows. And then I can even come back and do vertical cross contours to make the values look even darker. And then on this side over here, I see some shadows, but more towards the bottom. So you'll be able to come in like the examples, and there's some examples on the worksheet too, and you'll be able to put those hatching and cross contour lines to suggest the different values that you see. And even if you have objects that are transparent, you can still see through them. So look for those lines that you see, and just think of everything as light and shadow, and I think you'll be fine. And you'd be surprised like how much layering will start to bring things out quite a bit. So you'll go back in and just do the the cross contour and all of that on top of this, and it will start to look more three-dimensional. But this is just an exercise, so don't try to worry too much about it. It's a sketchbook exercise that you'll photo and put into the sketchbook as a warm-up. So the second one I'm going to do, and you can see I was using a regular Sharpie, and you see how it bled through the pad. So that's why normally I will say, like, tear the pages out before you draw so that it doesn't ruin the pages underneath. So for the second assignment for today, for your sketchbook, it said to do the sustained gesture, and this one should take about, I would say, set like maybe a 30-minute timer, and then you're going to use your charcoal, your willow charcoal, and your compressed charcoal, and your charcoal pencil. So all those things that we got out last week that I was showing you how to do the gestures of like your hands and stuff with. So I actually get all my things out. And so this is going to be the gesture of the still life. So just like we did with before with the contour, this is same composition, same still life, but we're going to do the gesture technique. So remember, with gesture, it's really fast. You're not going to be drawing just outlines. So I don't want to see that in your assignments. I want you to try things new. And that's where a lot of students with gestures, it doesn't feel right because they've never been taught to draw that way. So they just do what they've done before. And that's really not challenging yourself. So you have to push yourself to try these new techniques because they really will help you. So in a short amount of time, I would say 2 to 3 minutes or less, I want you to sketch out the composite in a really quick scribble gesture and or mass gesture. So for instance, this bottle that's over here, it's really dark, so it might be easier to sketch that out more with the mass gesture. Same thing with this little dropper bottle that I have here. I may just kind of gesture in the general shape of it and then draw. And the cool thing about the willow charcoal is if you make a mistake, you can just wipe it off. Like, it's super forgiving. Okay, so I did, like you can see, really fast gesture of this. So now with the remaining time that I have, I'm going to just go back in and clean it up with my kneaded eraser and my charcoal pencils and start to add more of the details that I see. So at this point, I usually will grab a charcoal pencil, and then I just kind of start going in and just kind of working areas, pushing the values more where I need to. It's okay if it's still gestural looking, like that's the whole point of a gesture assignment, is that it has this sort of energy and captures the essence of the objects that you're drawing. So it can be more linear or it can be more blended, whatever feels natural to you, I guess. So, but I just want you to be practicing with value through the gesture to familiarize yourself with the still life, but also just to get your brain and eyes and hands warmed up. So when you start the actual drawing, you'll feel like you know more about it and it's not something new to you. So you can see just after a couple more minutes on these two objects, do you see how they're really starting to come alive? So that's why the gesture is so important with the contour. When I was using those markers, I was like, oh, I made a mistake. I just have to go with it. But the cool thing about the gesture, when you start out with the gesture, you can smudge it around, you can play with it, you can move it around, you can layer a line drawing on top of it. So don't ever give up with these, like just keep pushing them, and you don't ever stop until it looks good. So set a timer for like 20-30 minutes for the gesture one, and within the first 2 minutes get your line drawing down, your quick gesture, and then go back and start pushing the objects just like we did with the other objects last week. Okay,